Hello and welcome to another edition of We Debate. I'm Joe Munene. Now, recent challenges facing both public and private Kenyan universities have brought to the fore questions about the quality, standards, and relevance of our university education. Are we delivering relevant and globally competitive university education? Or have we long ago veered off the mark? Hence the reason we continue to put thousands of graduates onto the streets with few or no opportunities for employment. This is good for debate.
The debate motion for tonight. Let it be resolved. Kenyan university degrees are no longer competitive and are not aligned to current future job market requirements. Our debaters for tonight are, on the affirmative side of the debate we have Professor Alex Mwiti, Senior Agroecology Policy and Advocacy Advisor, the Center for International Forestry Research and World Agroforestry. On the negative side of the motion, we have Professor Elijah Omwenga, Deputy Vice Chancellor, DVC, Academic and Student Affairs, University of Kabianga.
Professor Alex Awiti, Professor Elijah Omwenga, welcome to this debate session. The motion for debate, let it be resolved. Kenyan university degrees are no longer competitive and are not aligned to current future job market requirements. Alex, you are arguing on the affirmative side of this debate. Professor Omwenga, you stand in opposition. We start off with 1 minute opening remarks from each of you. That will be followed by 5 minutes for you to make a strong case on your side of the motion. Now, as part of the format of the debate, we have a panel of 3 jurors who will be listening in to the arguments, scoring, and your objective is to convince them to be on your side of this debate. Now, prior to the start, we have polled the jury members, and 3 of the jurors are actually in agreement with the motion. So, Professor Alex Awiti, you start with a head start. Professor Omwenga, you have a lot of work to do to win over the jury team to your side of the debate. At the end of the debate, we will poll the jurors again to determine whether you've been successful in swaying them.
On the jury panel, we have Juror 1, Martin Openda, Director, Talent Acquisition. Juror 2, Siria Rama, HR Learning and Development Consultant. Juror 3, John Mugo, Executive Director, Zizi Afrique Foundation.
So to start off, Professor Awiti, your 1 minute opening statement.
Thank you very much, Joe. Good morning. Universities are currently constituted are on the verge of apoplectic collapse. These are the words of Professor David Helfand, who was an astrophysicist, was a professor at Columbia University, and was also the president of Quest University in Vancouver. There is a grotesque mismatch between the skills produced at the university in the graduates that come out of universities and the job market. In a stiff rebuke, Charles Sykes argues that universities are a bubble that is ready to burst. An economist, Brian Kaplan, observed that degrees don't arm students with the skills that are needed for the job market. In a study that was conducted recently, 50% of Kenyan employers say that graduates are unfit for work. Another study done in 2014 by the Inter-University Council of East Africa and the East Africa Business Council revealed that 51 to 63% of graduates from East Africa were unfit for work. What I'm going to lay out is substantive evidence with recent statistics across various sectors of the economy, education, health, media, to demonstrate that our graduates coming out of universities are not up to scratch and not fit for the market. And universities, therefore, need to innovate or fail.
All right, thank you very much. Professor Omwenga, your 1 minute opening statement.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Alex, for your opening remarks. The Kenyan economy is growing at 6.7%. This growth is thanks to the robust investments we've done in education. Education is a direct factor of production. The skills and human resource power that we use to produce that which is measured at the end of the year in terms of the services and the products that we have produced is a direct impact on how we are training our graduates. The university sector in Kenya is growing. There could be challenges, but not to the extent that we say they are not competitive. Our degree programs, from which we choose the best that we are using to grow the economy, are still very competitive. We continue to benchmark with the very best in the world. We continue to benchmark with the industry in this country in order to align our degree programs with the needs of the people of Kenya. The skills base that we have right now in this country is what we are using to produce, is what we are using to provide services, and therefore I stand to say our degree programs are competitive and we are globally competitive as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your opening statements. We now circle back to you, Professor Awiti. Your main presentation, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Joe, and thanks, Elijah, for those comments. I fully agree that university education is the bulwark, it's the fulcrum, it is the basic backbone of building and solidifying economic growth and social development. However, our universities are underserving our country. They are not doing justice to the investments that parents and students who come to these universities are seeking. As I said before, there's a death spiral in our universities. Our current academic programs have solidified on a path of rigidity. And what we say with these kinds of systems is that there is a socio-technical and institutional lock-in in the trajectories that universities have taken. We've created enterprises that are almost similar to a shipyard construction or managing conveyor belt and industry flow, where we have created hierarchies inside universities that are resistant to change, are inimical to innovation, and have created an elite structure, and therefore universities in many, many senses exist just to preserve themselves, but are now not looking out into industry to see where the new trajectories of education innovation should go. As I said in the beginning, I was going to offer some specific examples. So an estimated 8,940 law students have failed the bar exam since 2009. And this was data that was presented to us in a 2018 report. A study by CPS International in 2020 revealed that 50% of our graduates were not fit for employment, and they lacked the basics in skills and knowledge that graduates need to get into the workplace. And some of these are as basic as writing and reading and communication, and some, in instances where they needed, even numeracy skills. Another study that was done, which was a cross-sectional across the practice areas for general physicians in our health sector, reveals that our graduates lack critical skills. And remember, these are doctors that are required for primary health care. Our doctors cannot take notes, for instance, in consultancies. They cannot communicate. They lack basic skills that are needed for child health, for basic surgery. And we're talking about primary health care here. We're talking about universal access to health. These are doctors coming out of our universities. And this is a study that is done by peers in this field themselves. In the field of journalism, for instance, professors have argued that the quality of journalism programs in our country are undermined by the paucity of research and scholarship in the field, especially in the Kenya media space. Very often, we understand from media practitioners that when journalists come fresh from school, you have to upskill them and reskill them for them to be able to fit in the market. These are critical concerns in critical areas of the economy. Going further is the quality of teachers, for instance. We've had this great debate about what should the standard of teacher training be. We've had TSC argue, for instance, that we need to stop fresh direct recruitment of B.Ed students, B.Ed graduates into the school system. What they're suggesting is that we should train fundamentally in the content areas before the teachers then get a postgraduate degree in education. And it is because it is just very difficult for us to simultaneously train in the content area and also train in critical pedagogical skills. Now, these are some decisions that have been taken at a policy level, but they've been met by significant resistance, which is the point about the lock-in, the socio-technical lock-in that I was talking about, the path dependence, where universities now just exist to preserve these academic departments. And Kenyatta University has been very vocal in this. Very recently, just across the street, University of Nairobi, Professor Kiama suggested that he would scrap 40 departments that he thought were not tuned, were not relevant to the market needs. And this has been a constant debate. We have over 3,400 degree programs offered in this country. The question is, are these fit for the economic direction that the country needs to go? So I think the fundamental questions here is really job readiness, which is fundamentally critical, understanding the trajectories of the economy, universities being much more flexible and being more outward facing. And I think in the subsequent conversations that we'll be having, I'll create a basic foundation for the building blocks of university transformation, which will basically start to think about universities as centers of knowledge, but also universities as partnership enterprises, which basically then link very strongly to understand the needs of the industry, to then now create curricula that responds to those needs, and having a better and a stronger partnership between universities to understand the signals of advances in the needs of industry, to then create those graduates who will fit in the workplace. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Professor Awiti. Professor Omwenga, some pretty strong points there. I don't know whether you want to cross the floor at this early stage and join Professor Awiti, but now your chance for your opposing presentation.
Thank you, Joe. Alex, I think is arguing from my side point, but anyhow, first, the fact that students fail an exam does not mean we don't need a degree program. The fact that we need reskilling and retooling of our academic staff does not mean we don't need degree programs. The fact that we need to continuously improve on our curricula is a long-term process of curriculum review and curriculum implementation. Nothing new there, my colleague Alex. But now, let me go straight into my points here. I have 3 or 4 areas I want to focus. First, curriculum and industry. The curriculum we implement at the various universities, including my own University of Kabianga, is relevant and updated in terms of the needs of the industry. We engage the stakeholders as we review this curriculum in order to understand what are the needs of the industry. It is a regulated process by the Commission for University Education, who do regular checks to confirm this. I want to confirm that we produce graduates who are fit for the industry. There are areas of improvement. I'm a product standing here before you. Alex is a product of a prestigious university. All of you jurors, including Joe, you're products of various universities, and hence the high skills that you are displaying here this morning. And therefore, I want to say that universities are still relevant. We are producing degree programs which are fit for the industry, and our graduates are out there serving this country and the global community very effectively. The fact that we are producing more than the economy needs does not mean we don't need degree programs. We need to engage the policymakers and improve the economy and absorb all these degree graduates that we are producing. It's not the other way around. Secondly, we have recently seen teacher Tabiti, who was awarded the best teacher of the world, I think 2019 and thereabout. The best teacher from this country is something to celebrate. That means he is offering qualified and great education to the children of this country. It means teacher Tabiti, who was educated and trained in a university in Kenya, is doing the right thing to be recognized at the international arena. Recently, we saw the British government signing an understanding with the Kenyan people to employ the nurses from Kenya. I want to confirm that we have several of our nurses, graduates of these various universities in Kenya, employed in Canada, employed in Germany, competitively employed in the United States, Philippines, and the rest of the world, thanks to our robust education system. I also want to confirm that our engineers are employed in multi-mega projects, international projects, some of them in this country, thanks to the education that we are giving them. We need engineers to do our roads. You cannot employ somebody who is not qualified to design a road. We need experts in medical field to treat us, to make sure our health is taken care of. We can't get somebody who doesn't have a degree. And we have these in plenty, doing excellent jobs in our various hospitals. Fourthly, we continue to ensure that our degrees are properly incubated in the various places where they're domiciled. We have engaged the experts to come and review our curricula in order to ensure that we bring in issues of entrepreneurship, and we have internships, which are almost mandatory in all universities in this country, where students interact with the industry before they graduate, to make sure that the education we are giving them, the qualifications they are going to have, are relevant and fit for the job market. My colleague has talked about retraining once the students have graduated, even in journalism and etc. That is part of the process, because we give the skills, we give the foundation, we give the various principles required. And you can imagine training an engineer to go and do only boilers, or training an engineer to only repair machines, which are using right here. We train them with the principles to be able to be agile. And in the first 3 months of employment in whatever sector of engineering, you're able to understand that environment and apply the principles for posterity and forever. We train a medical doctor today to apply the skills using various techniques which are there. It doesn't mean that these medical experts will not work in future inventions, future medical technologies which come up. The principles we give are long-lasting and forever. We train a teacher to go out there and teach biology, but we know new inventions come up, new medical issues come up, and when they go there teaching their students, they use the principles that we have given them. We train forever, not for specific industry, so that when they go out there in the industry, they are able to be agile and pick up the various things that they have learned. And finally, very important need, the quality of education we produce here is regulated by the Regulator Commission for Higher Education, who do regular checks to confirm that we are doing the right thing. We have rankings which come up from time to time, thanks to the Commission for Higher Education, which ensures that our degree programs are relevant and they are properly packaged for purposes of meeting the demands of the industry. That regulatory body is doing its job well.
Okay, thank you very much. Now is the opportunity for rebuttals. We'll start again with you, Professor Awiti. Your chance to respond to what you've heard so far.
Thank you very much, Joe, and Elijah, thanks for a very spirited discourse. But I must say that you're presenting the ideal. You're presenting the aspiration of the academy. And one scholar that I read very religiously is Leonard Pritchard, who is a great scholar in education. And he talks about isomorphic mimicry, where you're saying that we're everything in the exact formation of that which we aspire to. So what you're describing is the bureaucracy of the academy, the ideal, the way it's supposed to be. The question is that what you're presenting does not square with the reality on the ground. I understand the point that we train for lifelong learning, but if just 4 years with everything that you've described, a student gets into university and goes through the exact program that you've laid out, you have strong links to industry, you have CU regulating curriculum, but as soon as they get out the door into the workplace, the employer cries wolf and says, oh my God, they're not fit for work. I don't understand what has been happening in those 4 years. If it was about retooling 10 years after they left, we might have a conversation about how the industry has advanced, and in the natural process of just the person keeping in tune with the advances of their careers, then you can understand that. But if off the bat upon graduation, they show up in a workplace and you have a journalist who cannot use a camera, for instance, who cannot take an interview, for instance, who cannot write to be understood, if you have magistrates who basically are in our courts who cannot write coherent judgments in English, then that's an indictment on the education system. That's an indictment on the programs. That's an indictment on the quality. And I get the CUE point, and I've been in this business. I know how it works. We produce curriculum, and I work with my academic colleagues. They go through the internal processes. They advance the curriculum framework. It goes through all kinds of reviews. Sometimes the universities themselves require internal peer review. We send it to the Senate. Everybody looks at it. We bounce it around. Then we send it to CUE, which is not another echo chamber of just people like me and you who are sitting in there, still in this bubble that is ready to burst, that has no connection, even though CUE mandates industry participation and stakeholder participation in that process. It is not done robustly. So what I'm suggesting is that yes, we absolutely need university degrees. We absolutely need university programs. And yes, our graduates, like you and me and the jurors sitting here, are a perfect demonstration of the quality these academic programs produce. But we're in the vast minority. What we are talking about is the 50 to 63% that the industry condemns and says they're not fit for purpose. What I'm saying is that no student should come out of university as a failure. Every student coming out of a university that is worth its name on paper must be ready to work.
Professor Omwenga, your rebuttal, please.
Thank you very much. The fact that we have a student who is not able to operate a camera, or rather graduate, does not mean that that particular graduate did not get through the education program properly. The fact that we may have one or two outliers out there who are failing.
63% is an outlier.
Well, we need to check on those statistics.
No.
The fact that we have a few of these out there does not mean that the education system or the curriculum we are offering is not adequate. Finland, which is a country that produces the best education and the best graduates in the world, is renowned for that, both right from basic all the way to university, still complain that some of their graduates are not fit for work, some small percentage. Those statistics are there. It means, therefore, it is a continuous process of engaging our experts in curriculum development to see how we can have a program on some of these outliers can be retooled and be re-engaged to deal with the 100% transition that we are talking about in terms of fit for graduate. But nevertheless, I want to say that we have structures in place. And when you have structures in place right from curriculum development, curriculum implementation, curriculum review, and curriculum evaluation, all these structures are geared towards solving the problem that you talked about, Bwana Awiti, and the problem of ensuring 100% fit for the market. And this is a world over problem. It's been there since the creation of universities, and we continue to improve on these things as we scale up in terms of the production of our graduates is concerned. Thirdly, global competitiveness is about the curriculum. It is not about the graduate. We have to distinguish between the two. But the graduates we produce are supposed to be people fit for the society, people fit for lifelong learning, people fit to solve the problems of the industry and the society, irrespective of the circumstances. We must distinguish between the two. Curricula fit for purposes of being competitive as a university, and producing graduates who are competitive for lifelong interaction and solving problems of the world. Finally, number 4, I mentioned about international rankings. What are they for? The Times ranking, Webometrics ranking. Why are we ranking? We rank according to the quality of the curriculum, according to the products we produce, according to the research portfolio that we have, according to the rich content that we have, for purposes of comparing the graduates we produce and the way we produce these graduates. Kenyan universities have been favorably ranked both at the Times ranking and Webometrics ranking. University of Nairobi and others, even my university, University of Kabianga, have been cited among the top in Africa. University of Nairobi has been among the top 10 for many years now. That ranking is about fit for purpose graduates that we produce. It's not for the sake of it. That ranking is about the quality of the curriculum that we implement, not for the sake of it. The Times ranking, which is engaging universities in Africa right now, for the sub-Saharan ranking, is about the quality and fit for purpose graduates. And they have recognized that Kenya is one of those, and they are engaging us very robustly because they have seen the kind of market that we have and how we are addressing that market for the graduates that we need. Fifthly, we are talking about integrated education. Integrated education here is about an all-round person. Invest zero in education and invest nothing for the future. We are investing in education in order to have a robust country, a country that debates, a country that understands itself, a country that solves its problems. So that integrated education is not just about the knowledge we give these people. It's about the culture we inculcate in them. It's about the attitude that we are bringing out on these people. It's about the ability to be a useful person in society. So if we don't have these degree programs where we are educating these people to become useful in the industry, useful in the society, we are creating a dangerous path for the future. Invest in education now and forever invest in a future that is assured for our country. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Quite diverse and interesting insights on both ends. We now take a short break. We are at the halfway mark. In the second half, we will have questions and answers. We'll have cross-examination, a chance for either both of you to ask each other questions, and then the jurors will also come in with their questions. We'll be right back. Thank you. Welcome back to the debate. A quick reminder for you to engage with us on this debate motion on our social media pages. Now, we start with cross-examination. We will start on the opposing side. Professor Omwenga, your opportunity. You have how many questions? 2 or 1?
Maybe 2.
Okay,
Maybe
we'll start with you. You can ask them sequentially or question, answer. Over to you.
Thank you, Joe. My friend and colleague, Professor Awiti, you're agreeing with the motion that Kenyan degrees are no longer competitive and not aligned to current and future job market requirements. If you truly believe that this is the case, then do you believe too that we don't need to invest in knowledge? Do you still believe that we don't need to invest in education in order to produce manpower for our public service? Do you still believe that we don't need to invest in degree programs for purposes of addressing the various challenges in our economy today? So do you believe, therefore, that we should close universities and go up to maybe Form 4 and start employing fourth formers to deal with the myriad challenges in the public service, in health, in agriculture, and other sectors of our economy? That's my first question.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe that in a post-knowledge era, such as where we are, where we've gone into a conceptual age, we need to re-examine the efficacy and the relevance of our education system, the curriculum, and the graduates that it produces, taking into account the rapid evolving space that is the job marketplace, especially the densification of technology and digital applications that are now beginning to run our economy. And the fact that we are now confronted with overlapping challenges, crises like climate change, unemployment, food security, global conflict, especially geopolitically motivated, social inequality, and etc. It therefore means that there's a fundamental flaw in the organization and the structures of delivery of education that are extremely subject matter specific. Karl Popper, a philosopher, said that we need to produce students who are experts in problems and not in subject matter. The way that universities are organized around the silos of academic programs is at the heart of the crisis of skills in the university. The fact that universities are grotesquely disconnected from the real market is a critical problem that needs to be solved. And therefore, fundamental reform and transformation and innovation is needed to bring and align university academic programs to the problems in society. You will not teach a physicist to solve the problem of unemployment. They need to understand sociology, anthropology, they need to understand economics. They will be going out there to work in interdisciplinary teams, working with other colleagues. So there need to be a revamp of the academic foundations of degree programs to basically, as you said, create a sense, and not just in a token way, but drive interdisciplinarity. Now that means that you must fundamentally reform CUE, which is a bean count, and I've had these discussions with CUE. It is not about the inputs into the academic process, it's about the student outcomes. The student outcomes are not measured in proficiency in subject matter, but they're measured in the fitness and capability of the students to grapple with the overlapping crisis of our modern time.
Therefore, Joe, it means what you're proposing is a review and continuous improvement, which is the citadel of knowledge and education provision in any part of the world. You therefore don't quite agree with the motion, in my view, and just to buttress on that point, is that the knowledge economy that we are dealing with in the current dispensation right now cuts across every sector, not just in education, but even in the industry, who use and apply that knowledge, which we produce at the university. Without university education, without producing graduates fit and ready to go out there to deal with the issues in the industry, then they will also fail in terms of the knowledge economy definition that you tried to give out here.
Now, my problem is that universities are not responding fast enough to this. That's why we're saying that our academic programs are no longer competitive. And that in itself implies that we need fundamental innovation and fundamental transformation. We're not saying that we don't need degree programs. That's a very separate and, in fact, a catastrophic argument to make.
Yeah.
What we're saying is that we need to do something, and we need to do it radically and fast. Now, we've seen attempts by the Ministry of Education to basically drive internally reform and transformation in the universities, and has been met by very serious resistance from the university faculty unions, from vice chancellors, for instance. Because what we're saying is that, and Professor and Dr. Matiang'i, who was then the Minister for Education, basically said that the current unemployment crisis is, in fact, a creation of the low quality of graduates that we produce. And therefore, it means that the fundamental reform that must happen will actually help address this fundamental challenge. And what I'm saying as a tax-paying citizen is that we're not getting value for money from our universities. And there's a huge amount of taxpayer subsidy that goes into universities that pays professors and creates affordable and accessible education for our graduates. But the problem is that we're not getting value for education when patients die in hospital because doctors are unskilled, when our students don't get the right kind of education because our teachers are not well trained, when our journalists don't write accurate stories and cannot report accurately, cannot write, and our judges and magistrates cannot write good judgments, and therefore do a disservice in terms of the criminal justice system. That is the problem.
I disagree with the general approach where we are condemning the graduates wholesomely.
The numbers, the statistics
they can't
are
write
huge.
judgments,
63%.
they can't treat our patients,
8,944.
that they are not employable. We train our graduates not only for the white-collar jobs, but for innovative industry. The Chura application produced by university students at the University of Nairobi is a world-class application which is not requiring a white-collar job. It's about innovation. We create these people to be job creators, not just to fit in the little limited jobs in the public sector or even in the industry. They should be able to be employers, and that's what we are doing. What are the statistics you have about how many of our graduates are employers right now? You don't have that.
We have the statistics, but what I'm saying is this, that I fundamentally agree that there are some bright sparks in the graduates that come out of a university. But what I'm saying is that we're not getting value for money at scale. 63% of graduates being unfit for work is catastrophic.
All right. That was your first question.
Yes.
Has your second question been tucked in there as well?
A little bit, but I will rephrase it a little bit
30
more.
seconds, and then we move to Professor Awiti's questions.
Professor, the education system we have in the country right now is being reformed. We have the CBC curriculum, competence-based curriculum, or competence-based education. Within it, we have the competence-based education. I don't know what your views are in terms of this very innovative and agile mode of education provision in our country, and why you haven't talked about it in terms of addressing those reforms you're talking about.
The CBC is a fundamental transformative conversation in the education system, basically addressing the capability in terms of building broad skills, linking education closer to the community, bringing parents as co-creators of an education enterprise and education.
So do you think that will address some of the challenges you mentioned?
It will, but the problem
as part of reacting to the challenges, and therefore we are transforming. We are on the right path in this country when we recognize the challenges and we beat those challenges using an agile curriculum like the one we are talking about.
The problem is that the universities have not weighed into the CBC conversation. What we've been talking about, the 6333
I'm here doing it.
Is, no wait, hang on, is the basic side of the education. The university part, we don't even know whether you're going to ask us to do 4 years or 5 years of graduate education, but it is hugely disruptive in the sense that it is going to turn on its head the pedagogical approaches that are currently in vogue in the university, the lecture, the deposit approach that we use in universities, where I pontificate and then at the end of it, I want to withdraw, you've got to give me back everything. It's going to challenge fundamentally every basic element of pedagogical design, of the knowledge enterprise design, and also of the assessment structure of universities. And it's going to cause universities to link much stronger to industry. Now, look, this is coming from somewhere else. It is not coming from the university. This is a KICD. Where are the professors who are so literate and so learned about education? I don't see this leadership coming from Kenyatta University, which is the oldest.
Point of correction for purposes of the public who are watching this. University sector is deeply involved in the whole process of curriculum reviews.
No, but this is being run
deeply involved on the CBC process, and we have a high-powered Vice Chancellor's Committee that is addressing the linkage between Teacher Service Commission, KICD, and universities. I can speak on the University of Kabianga, where we have a robust team that is working on how we shall implement CBC in our universities. And point of correction again, the discussion on how we shall call the Bachelor of Education is a robust and healthy debate. Teacher Service Commission is talking about BEd with, and we are talking about Bachelor of Education in. A very robust discussion. I don't know, you're privy to that. I'll talk about it more.
And
therefore, we are talking about issues which are being discussed and resolved as we climb the ladder.
But Professor, what does this mean? This means that you are running after the facts.
No,
you're basically late in the arguments. This debate should be led by the university. If universities are supposed to be the creators and generators of innovation, then they failed.
2019, the CS for Education appointed a committee chaired by Professor Fatuma Sichale, who is now the Principal Secretary in the Ministry, to chair a committee on the implementation of CBC in the country. And the report dated February 2020 is what is currently obtaining and being implemented by universities. That is where we take the leadership.
All right, I need to move things along. Professor Awiti, your questions?
So my question basically is around the structure and the organization of universities. And I think, as I mentioned, we have this path dependencies lock-in, where universities basically now exist to perpetuate themselves. And I think one of the fundamental problems, especially with the grotesque mismatch between the skills that we're producing and the job market, is exactly how universities are organized. I'm a product of that university, and I have serious problems with the design of academic programs that are extremely siloed. I understand the surface courses that if I'm studying economics, I'll do a course in communication, but that doesn't make me a communicator. I want to be in a community of learning, a learning community that creates trans and interdisciplinary processes in approaches to knowledge. So, Professor, what is your view about deep and transformational reform inside curriculum design, inside moving away from a focus on subject matter, which, as we know, is not how the world is organized. The world is not a milk crisis problem. The world is a food crisis problem. So that means that we've got to bring everything from producing fish to producing milk to producing vegetables to producing cereals and to organizing the economics and the logistical supply chains around that. How do we educate students for solving global problems, even national problems?
That's a very good question from my colleague here. The structure of development of curricula at universities follows a pattern of first identifying what the industry needs, then identifying what is the capability of the academic staff to produce what the industry needs. And then we make a decision that we will package a curriculum that will address those gaps in the industry. Secondly, you mentioned about specialization and general aspects of a curriculum. And at universities right now, we even talk about specialization at the four-year program. I'll speak about computer science as an example. The computer science curriculum is structured in such a way that the first year you learn about mathematics because of the modeling aspects that you need in computer science. You need about physics because of the digital technology that you have to acquire as you move on. We talk about languages because you must define and design systems using a language. We even talk about issues of communication, because you must communicate your designs and your structures to the users. That is general aspect for purpose of fitting into the market. Then later on, we have specializations. After learning all those aspects which you need in communication, in basic fundamentals of digital aspects, aspects of modeling, then you specialize either to get into the hard subjects of programming, issues of software engineering, issues of computer applications and IT. So that is an example. I want to agree to some extent that curriculum review and design is something that we can look at, but in a nutshell, it is in our fingertips and we continue to improve upon it. In terms of the pathways, the CBC curriculum, which is undergoing some investigations, or rather some reviews by the experts which selected by the president, recognizes that at the beginning, pre-primary, the children are learning psychomotor skills. Then in primary, they start learning things of integrated science all the way to junior secondary. Then in upper secondary, they specialize in 3 areas, which you talked about, Professor. There is the arts and media, then the social sciences, science, technology, and innovation. So specialization is well defined and inculcated in the CBC curriculum, exactly what you're talking about. That's in recognition of some of those little gaps which are there to make sure that we have an all-round person who is fit for the very complicated and complex job market out there.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We now cross the floor to the jurors. We will start with Martin Openda. I think you have 2 questions.
Yes, I do. Thank you for that, and thank you for the spirited debate thus far. I'm really enjoying it, and my questions are twofold. One to Professor Omwenga. You mentioned how universities are trying to get the space of partnering with industry. It's understood that now that we are in the post-knowledge evolution or part of our development, where the cognitive revolution has taken hold and we are moving swiftly into a space where it's not really about how much knowledge I can take in, it's more about how I can then be better than the algorithms that are coming through, or even be able to understand and manipulate this information and data to be able to solve holistic and global problems. And we are hoping or looking to the universities to be able to answer these questions for us and produce solution seekers. So my question is, are we doing enough as university, not to chase industry, but rather to be the start point of where industry comes to you and sees as a center of excellence in cybersecurity, as a center of excellence in food security? What should we as industry be doing? And I feel that is where the real question of today's debate is around, where we're saying our current situation is no longer a space of being reactive, but rather one that should be responding to more global issues, to put us in a space where we are ranking higher than between 500 and 600 in our centers of knowledge. University of Nairobi is the only one in the top 10 among the African universities. And that's not saying enough, because we are below 500 globally. So what are we doing then to be able to respond to the question of, industry is already moving and we're trying to drag universities with us? When are we going to see that turnaround? Are we doing enough now to ensure we are the ones ahead?
Thank you, Martin, for that question. It's a triple helix solution where we have the industry, the government, and the universities, all of us working together. At the center is the graduate or the services that we give. The partnership that we continue to have with the industry is based on the needs of the industry, not necessarily the needs of the universities, which we have in plenty, but to engage, for example, the media to come and cover debates which go on in universities, robust media debates, solving issues of GMO, talking about issues of public sector and how we can reform. You may not have the time. So it is better that we look at this thing as wholesome issue that is addressing the country. Then again, you mentioned about knowledge economy, and post-industry engagement, IT, fourth industrial revolution, all these things are in the public domain. And we are doing a lot in terms of harnessing the potentials they have in order to solve the problems of the industry. I mentioned some of the applications we have. Very agile students out there doing their stuff. And some of those applications, they feature prominently even in international media than they do in our local situation. Recently, we had a graduate from our University of Kabianga in Sweden demonstrating an application on quality assurance issues. It was never covered in the media in this country. Why? Because perhaps you need to look at how you contribute towards the knowledge economy of the country and not the political aspects of it. Thank you.
All right. Second question, Martin?
Yes, my second question would go to Professor Awiti. Given your understanding of where we are going and what has been happening in as far as the graduates coming through our universities not being ready for industry, and speaking from a position where I'm in talent acquisition, and we see this a lot where graduates come and yes, they know the stuff, but they're not ready to work because they cannot digest that. My question to you is, do you feel, and maybe this is even going into the CBC space, but do you feel then that we are unfairly castigating the universities because the products going into the universities are not fully baked or fully ready to go through the rigors of a robust curriculum within university? Do you feel that's actually where the issue is?
Thanks, Martin. I think the fundamental question at the heart of this is these are students who've come through a very rigorous, we may not agree with the method that produces the outcomes at KCSE, the drill and all of that. And then getting into a university system that is also structured in the same way. It is also very didactic in its orientation. That is a withdrawal process. The examination process, the assessment process is really about recall rather than getting students to fundamentally understand application of knowledge. And as we keep saying that we need to move beyond that. I have had the opportunity of teaching at University of Nairobi. I was teaching a course in the Biosciences Engineering program, and as soon as I walked into the classroom, the students started writing notes. They started writing the first thing that I said, and I said, hang on, this is not how we're going to run this class. We're going to have a discussion, we're going to create topics, and you're going to contribute to the discussion. And then we'll give you notes and pointers to what you need to study in depth afterwards. So you flip the classroom, where you now create this as a problem-solving arena, not a lecture. And the professors become the guide on the side. Now, this is where universities have failed. You have a highly prescribed curriculum. You have 16 weeks within which to deliver and examine this. And they're struggling. The professors themselves are not generators of knowledge. They're consumers of knowledge, in a sense. The amount of research that we do in public universities is very, very tiny. And a very, very small fraction of that goes into the curriculum and the subjects that we're teaching in that semester. So you find a situation whereby professors may be doing some great work in the field, but that work does not feed necessarily into what they're teaching in the classroom. So I think the whole reform and reformatting of the curriculum design is a fundamental question, and is at the heart of the foundations of regulation and requirements of regulation at the Commission of University Education. So we need a conversation that blows this apart and identifies that we have a problem, a systemic problem, that universities now are in the business of perpetrating. And that's what I call the socio-technical institutional lock-in, that we need to break with some serious disruption into the system. And we need to own up and say there is a fundamental problem.
Right.
May I rebut to that?
10 seconds.
Yes. Provision of education, how you teach, how you give a lecture is based on principles of education, such as the constructivism approach, which recognizes that yes, you can have the students create the knowledge, the flipped classroom approach, but you need the fundamentals in terms of engaging them. How do you engage them? They can even write, because writing, listening, and also talking is the best way of retention. If you just listen without writing, you only get about 30% of retention. If you write some of the key points while you're listening, you get 80, 90%. And therefore, it is quite important to recognize that writing as you go into the classroom as per the provisions which are there in the whole method of lecturing and provision of knowledge, should not necessarily mean that the students are not contributing or not agreeing with you in how you want to deliver your lecture. And finally, I do agree that some of the...
You are redefining the 10-second duration.
Some of the publications which are in the best places like Nature and Elsevier, I agree with you. They have not gained the conversation in the public domain. Who is responsible for that? It's not the professor who has produced it, it's even the media who needs to give the audience to these professors. I know one professor who did something about COVID, and it's in Nature, but it's only quoted in CNN and other medias out there, but not in this country here. Thank you.
Let me come back to that media question. Yes. Wouldn't that then give credence to what Professor Awiti is saying? That the Kenyan media is an output of largely Kenyan universities and educational institutions. So if there's a problem, as you put it, with the media, doesn't that then support what he's saying about the learning outcomes? Just for you to mull over it, don't answer me.
I will give it differently. To put it different, it's not about the media. In fact, I'm not blaming the media.
About the journalists.
It's about the whole ecosystem, the whole way of doing things, which we need to talk about.
University again.
Well, the universities have done their role. It's a question of having, I said, a triple helix issue. There is the government, there is the public, and of course the universities. And all
right, we'll now take a question from Syria Rama, the second juror. Indicate the person to whom you're directing your question.
Gentlemen, that's a very interesting debate for us to have listened to. You both made very weighty points. To Professor Omwenga.
Yes, madam.
The question of 63% of graduates not being fit for the job market is still stuck in my mind. Being in industry, being in the learning and development space where we have to continuously upskill people who are coming into the job market, I'm still yet to hear, I hear a lot of theory, a lot of academia. I'm still yet to hear from you a solution whereby a graduate coming out of the university will be competent enough to fit in the job market, no matter the industry. So for me, maybe help me understand what the universities are doing to bridge that gap, because 63% is huge, and we see it every day with people coming in for interviews, with people who maybe even have scored very highly in, you know, at the point of graduation, first degree honors and what have you. But when it comes to expression, when it comes to understanding how to engage with people in the workplace, when it comes to problem solving and critical skills, we still don't see that. So that is where, for me, the issue of university degrees being competitive, not that they're not important, but the competitiveness is where I'm still stuck.
All right.
Thank you for that question. Syria, at what point in time was the 63% measured? Maybe you may not have the answer. Was it at the beginning when these students are beginning their first day in office, or 3 months later, 6 months later, 1 year later? You may not have the answer, and I'm doubting the 63% even in the way it is being framed here. Secondly, we have in the university system career office, which is prescribed to us by the Ministry of Education. It was required, where we engage the public as well as the students in terms of meeting that little gap that you addressed here today. The career office is to link the industry to the students and the other way around, to link the student to the industry. And that's why we bring about the public speakers, people from the industry, to come and talk about these things in order to make it easier for the graduates when they go out there to work. Next, we have attachments, field trips, internships, and this is mandatory for all the degree programs. At least I can speak for the University of Kabianga. All the degree programs we offer at the university, the students must do some few months of internship where they get attached to the industry which is relevant to their degree program in order to quickly acclimatize themselves when they get employed eventually, in order to address the issue that you've raised. We talk about issues of attachment, internship and attachment put together. Then again, within the curriculum itself, we are engaging what we call nano certificates. Nano certificates are short courses, we call them batches, where graduates, before the students graduate from a university, they are able to address certain fundamental aspects within their curriculum which they think they are good at and was only covered maybe under fundamentals in the classroom. I'll give you an example. Cybersecurity is one example. We teach computer science students issues on security, computer security and the like. But now you want this particular graduate to be an expert in a specific area to address issues of big data security concerns, issues of cryptocurrency, for example, which we only mention in about 2 or 3 minutes in class. We give the student a badge. We give that student a nano certificate to address those gaps which you talked about. So we are on course, we are dealing with it. Unfortunately, it's not come out in the media and in the public domain that these things are done. But here is the platform, and we are beginning well. It's a good opportunity for us to talk about it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We now take a final question from the jurors, John Mugo.
One of the problems we know is that the people who teach in the university are not qualified to teach. And there is a difference between having the content of teaching physics and the pedagogy of teaching physics. The university teacher qualifies to be a teacher by just the basis of having a master's degree. How many of your lecturers in Kabianga have the training to teach?
Thank you. That's an excellent question.
Let me chip in.
Yes.
Respond to it in general.
Yes, and then give an example.
Yeah, I don't want to make it about a specific
I agree.
university.
Mr. Mugo, thank you for that question. I think I was going to deal with it, but thanks for answering that question. 100% of the lecturers at the University of Kabianga have been given the training on pedagogy. It's a requirement. And I know it's a requirement from the Commission for University Education to engage the lecturers across the universities in Kenya to have the pedagogical skills to be able to teach. That it's kind of a requirement. But Kabianga, 100%. Now, the Senate of the university determines who to teach and what to teach. I want to say without any fear of contradiction that every lecturer who is assigned to teach in Kabianga and any other university in Kenya is qualified, because that's one of the things the Commission for University Education has prescribed very seriously. In fact, if you are found to flout that rule, you can easily be disqualified to continue offering degree programs. That I can speak very authoritatively because of the quality assurance mechanism which are put in there. Now, finally, the university system right now is actually focusing on engaging PhDs, not even masters. If we don't have a PhD in a certain area, is when we go to masters. And you only teach, if you're a master's, you can only teach a graduate. If you have a master's, you can't teach PhD. If you have a master's and you could do so under supervision, that is a prescribed way of delivery using qualified academic staff. And we don't falter, we don't take a chance on that. The Senates are very, very clear on this one. Thank you.
Okay. Let me make a comment and then I'll ask a question from, I'll direct a question to each of you. So the Webometrics rankings of world universities, University of Nairobi 1,101. Obviously this was at the point that I looked at this. KU is ranked at 2,149. Egerton University 2,428. JKUAT at 2,518, Moi University 2,609.
Yes.
Now, if you look at these stats from the total number of universities, which I think is over 30,000.
100,000, over 100,000.
100,000?
Over 100,000.
So clearly, Kenyan universities are in the top 25%, possibly top 20% of world rankings.
Yes.
Does that give context to the conversation we're having? And then my two questions. To Professor Awiti, and you can respond to the stats. My question, is it about a curriculum issue or is it even a funding problem? That's one. And then to Professor Mwenga,
yes,
there are huge numbers of unemployed, and I think that is a reality that we are looking at.
Yes.
isn't this an indictment that we have put out these students, graduates, there are no jobs, we might say it's the economy, but if you take it back years earlier, then those who should be creating those opportunities have not been able to create the opportunities. So is that not an indictment on the quality of problem solving with our graduates? We'll start with you, Professor Witt.
So thanks, Joe. I think, to extricate a point of underlining a debate question based on webometrics is problematic. Of course, we have nothing else, but as soon as you say that Kenyan universities are in the top 25%, then we have nothing to talk about. That's a very high global ranking. The question is that it does not square with the reality that this country is facing today, of graduates who can't read, who can't write, who can't communicate, of doctors who can't diagnose primary healthcare questions. So I think we need to set that aside and basically focus on what are the real issues. And as I said, there is a socio-technical institutional lock-in in the academy. Webometrics have one dominant happy client called universities. They have to make them happy. Whatever they use is an input measurement. What we are struggling with is the outcome of all of these things that professors have been talking about. And I've had this same discussion with CUE. I've told them, what difference does the number of toilets in a school, for instance, as a ratio of students, as a critical point of evaluation? For sanitary issues, I understand that. But when it comes to the qualitative, to the outcome aspects of the quality assurance, this is where they fall short. And this is exactly why we are having this discussion today. That we've done everything, and I talked about isomorphic mimicry, where the thing looks like what it should be, but at the end of it, it does not produce what it is they want to see. So we've done everything. So when it comes to inputs, Professor is right. They've done everything. They have a careers office. It does what it needs to do. The question is, does it serve the students? Does it produce the student outcomes that we need? I think that's the big question. Now, it is a complex problem. And as I always say, these are wicked problems. There are many, many aspects to producing an education outcome. And there are questions around resources, there are questions around governance, there are questions around a pedagogical culture that John has been talking about. And it is exactly the questions that the professor has not been forthright in addressing. We know fundamentally, and we've been through these universities. I can remember my days in university when a professor talked to me, asked me why I was taking notes, and I said I was waiting for him, and this is a true story. I was waiting for him to tell the class something that he had not crammed from the books, to create a discussion. I told him that I was not a clerk to transfer things from what he was saying to my notes and then give them back to him. I remember that when I was in Moi University, because even at that time I was grossly frustrated with the deplorable quality of instruction in universities.
All right. So it's a complex mix of all of these issues. Professor Mwenga?
Thank you. Let me first comment before I answer the question about ranking. A little bit of education. Webometrics ranking, in which I had a chance to participate in its training in Paris some time back, takes in a number of attributes. It looks at the quality of training that we give. It looks at the number of publications a university is able to give and the impact of those publications in high-end research engines. It also looked at the size of your website in terms of the rich content. Rich content here is talking about issues of lectures, lecture notes, and etc. It also talks about the inlinks, how many people are coming to visit your website for information, and how many outlinks you have in order for you to attract the best to come to you. So it is an objective measure of the standing of a university.
Just to cut it short, I don't disagree.
Thank you.
What I'm saying is that these things do not
you're saying that the webometrics ranking is to make the universities happy. No,
it does make universities happy. Well, that was an overstatement. But what I'm saying is that what it produces
does not square
with the reality.
It is an overstatement. I agree.
Yeah.
Now, coming to the specific question you asked about employability of our graduates. Employability is a measure of the economy as well. Is our economy able to sustain these graduates? Who is responsible for growing the economies? All of us, including these very graduates, when they go out there and they create jobs and employ others. Who is also responsible? The policies that are there in the country right now, and the continuous steps we continue to make as a country to have a big economy. I said earlier, we are growing at 6.7%, an economy about 12 trillion Kenya shillings, and a GDP per capita of about 2,000 US dollars. That is not bad as a growing economy and fearing towards the Vision 2030. But we need to do more so that we don't wait for that vision as we continue to improve ourselves. The important thing, as I'm saying, and I will say it again, is to create an opportunity for these graduates to go out there and participate in economic development. And that opportunity is not just for the graduates and the lecturers, it's for all of us, the government, the triple helix approach, which I mentioned earlier. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Professor. We have to stop it here. Thank you for a robust and quite articulating the issues in depth. But the question is, have you done enough, Professor Omwenga, to win over the 3 jury members? And Professor Awiti, whether you've lost all of them, we now find out.
At the beginning of the debate, 3 jurors were in support of the motion, none was against. Have the debaters managed to win over the jurors with their argument?
All right, the jurors' verdict is in, and on this motion, let it be resolved, Kenyan university degrees are no longer competitive and are not aligned to current or future job market requirements. 3 of the jurors are still in agreement with this motion, and none is on the opposition or opposing side. So, Professor Omwenga, clearly it was not, the tide did not turn your way. Obviously, maybe we needed more time to deliberate on the motion. Well, that's the position of the jurors. Do you at home agree with it? We welcome your feedbacks and comments on this motion. Please engage with us on the social media pages, handles appearing on your screen right now. That's it for this edition of We Debate. A big thank you to our 2 debaters. We truly appreciate. Thank you to the team or the panel of jurors. Thank you to our location host, the Norfolk Hotel, the KTN production team behind this production. My name is Joe Munene, and we'll see you at the next debate. Thank you.